Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to the Hands On channel. Today I want to talk to you about a very serious subject matter, and it's the invasion on the southern border. Recently, I put up a video over on Rumble because I was worried it wouldn't make it past the censorship here on YouTube, and I put it up over on Rumble, and it's generated some conversation. And one of my commenters came in and basically said, he said, I can't remember exactly what he said, but he said something along the lines of, what are you going to do about it? Or what can be done about it? Who's going to stop it? Something along those lines. And I don't know if he was trying to, it immediately to me, I started thinking, this guy is glowing. What's the deal with this? Is this my FBI handler, trying to get me to say something illegal or inappropriate here or something like that could be used against me in the future? But then I thought, no, probably not. Probably just a serious question. So I tried to answer it to the best of my abilities. And I came up with 3 or 4 options that we could implement today or when the new Congress comes in, that would definitely slow or completely stop the illegal immigration from taking place in our country. It would put control where it belongs, back on the borders. And I just want to be clear at the beginning here, I have no problem with legal immigration. I think legal immigrants are some of the best, most patriotic Americans, have been my experience. Especially the ones that are leaving very oppressive places where they've experienced direct communism. They come here and they're usually the most patriotic Americans you'll find. I mean, in many cases. So I want to promote legal immigration, and maybe there are some things we need to do to sort that out and make that a speedier, smoother process for people that want to come in here legally. That's neither here nor there. I wanted to come up with some solutions that we could implement today that would stop the border crisis, the invasion from happening. And it's clearly an invasion. Several counties along the border, so Texas, I don't know if New Mexico, but definitely Texas and Arizona, several of the counties have declared a state of emergency and that this is an invasion. These are not my words. These are counties that are along the border. So they would know firsthand what's going on. It's not only a strain on the national and local economies all around the country, especially the border towns, but it strains our precious, limited resources, which are becoming increasingly harder and harder to get because, we're not allowed to drill for oil, we're not allowed to cut down trees, on and on and on. It's also created a huge humanitarian crisis. I mean, we've just seen story after story. I remember last summer reporting to you guys about that semi truck they found down in Texas. And these poor people, I don't care who you are, you would have to be heartless not to care about human beings or even animals being treated in this sort of way, where they left them locked up in a semi truck in the Texas heat in the middle of a heat wave. And of course, I think 50 of them died. It may have only been 45 of them, but the vast majority of these people, if not all of them, died in the back of that semi truck because of the conditions that are being allowed to take place. So it's our moral obligation, our responsibility, our duty to do something, to do everything we can to help our fellow man, even though they're not fellow Americans. They're invaders. They're coming in here and and I want to say something real quick. The reason I'm so adamant about saying this is an invasion is because I've read the UN Agenda 21-2030. I've read the replacement migration plan. I can't go into depth about that here on this YouTube video, or I run the risk of getting strike 3 and having my channel nuked. So anyway, go do your own research on that. Probably ought to look at a non-Google search engine to find this information. But I mean, it's not hard to see. We hear it on the nightly news. Drownings coming across the Rio Grande. I just heard about earlier today, even though Texas is having a massive polar vortex or polar blast, whatever they're calling it, they're getting slammed with super cold, freezing temperatures. And people are still crossing the Rio Grande by the hundreds today, even though it's freezing cold outside. And, so that's creating the possibility of, not only killing people, but definitely having some severe frostbite and other problems related to just being chilled to the max like that. So anyways, I can't imagine. And this is not just adults. A lot of these people are dragging their children in, and I'm hearing about babies sleeping out on the streets in El Paso in this freezing environment. So this is a humanitarian crisis that has been created by You could say the negligence of the Biden administration to even acknowledge that there's a problem on the border, but that's not it. Biden said in his campaign he wanted people to flood the border. So this is exactly what Biden wanted. I'm going to insert the picture here of all the people early on when Biden got elected. These were the people that were coming up. Somehow or another, they got these Biden Please Let Me In t-shirts by the hundreds or thousands or who knows. I mean, is that tied to George Soros or some other NGO that's funding this invasion? Probably so. So anyway, drownings are up. Farmers are finding dead bodies on their land and stuff like this by the dozens. I mean, how would you like that, to be a farmer or a rancher and have to constantly go on patrol looking for dead people on your land because the United States government is not fulfilling their duties to protect the border against invasion? So human trafficking is another big deal that's just exploded since Biden came into office, and that includes children. And many times there are sex crimes. Those have exploded, rapes, things like that, murders, all sorts of stuff, theft. And these things are going to continue to increase as long as we have an open border. Because like I've said many times, if you don't have a border, you don't have a nation. You don't have sovereignty. And that's a big deal. So these invaders are leaving tons of trash behind in their wake everywhere they go. So there's an environmental factor, there's an economic factor, there's a humanity factor. These people, I don't care where they fall on the spectrum or what ethnicity they are, no one deserves to be frozen to death because they've been promised some, golden ticket or something when they get to the United States of America. The problem is, who's promising them the golden ticket? Who's making them come to the border and declare amnesty or whatever? So I wanted to go over some options here that I think are viable to possibly stop this invasion in its tracks. Option one, this would be the easiest option for all of us, but we're going to have to make these people do it. The new Republican House is coming in real soon, and they will control the purse strings. That's very important. That means they'll control the budget of Washington, D.C. in general and the White House. So that's a huge deal. We could possibly, the new Republican House could stop this whole thing in its tracks, and that would be excellent. I would love that to happen. I'm not holding my breath for that to happen, but I'm hearing some talk already about their plan to stop the border crisis. They could use that money as leverage against the Biden regime and his agenda and the New World Order agenda, because that's what this is, guys. This is the New World Order, UN Agenda 21, 2030, replacement migration playing out right before our eyes. It's no longer a theory. This is happening. Option number two, you could build the wall, but, and I'm not really for or against the wall 100% either way, but it creates its own unique problems. And, for example, it's going to be really expensive to put the thing up. So, that's one big problem. But, invaders can just tunnel under the thing. Or they could cut through it, with one of these portable battery-powered grinders. Or, hell, they could fire up a generator and use a plasma torch and cut through the thing. It depends. You can't just have the wall. You're going to have the wall plus border security, patrolling the wall, and all kinds of technology and stuff like that. Eyes in the skies, drones, whatever, cameras, whatever they need to patrol the border. So it's not just build the wall. There's a lot more to it than that. So the pros of the wall are it sends a message to the invaders that, hey, you're not welcome here. There's a wall here. There's a reason people put fences and stockade fences and things like that around their homes and their property. It's because they want to say, hey, look, here's the line you can't cross. And that would send a clear, definitive legal message to them that, hey, look, you're not welcome here unless you want to apply for proper citizenship or proper amnesty or whatever. So that's an option. And that would be good. Secondly, it would reduce the number of Border Patrol agents needed to patrol the entire wall. And combined with cameras and drones and different things like that, you should be able to monitor the wall pretty closely. The cons of the wall are it's expensive to build and to maintain. So just finishing the wall up would probably be in the neighborhood of, billions and billions of dollars, but probably less than we've sent to Ukraine and less than we've sent to other nations to take care of their border security. So it's probably a good investment. One of the things that stood out to my mind years and years ago, Ron Paul, a great statesman, said that you have to look out because the walls that are used to keep people out could also be used to keep patriots in. So there could come a point when you can't hold the United States anymore because it's been totally overthrown by tyrants. And you might want to escape the United States down through Mexico, right? Start a new life in South America, get a sailboat, whatever you're going to do. If there's a huge wall there, that wall works both ways. It could be used to make you a prisoner inside the United States of America. So for that always stood out in my mind. Years ago when Ron Paul said that, I was like, oh, I never thought of it that way. And as soon as he said that, that's the only way I've thought of it. So I'm not really a big proponent of the wall. Option 2 is not my favorite option. Option 3 is the border state governors could like form up an alliance of state militias and deploy them all along the border. Now that would take a combined effort probably of multiple governors. They could do it on their own, and Governor Abbott has been doing a lot of that stuff to bring in the National Guard into like El Paso, which has been overrun. It's just a tragedy what's going on down there in El Paso and other border towns. And if you lived in a border town, you would be pretty upset that the federal government is not doing their duty. So if this militia was formed and they were given the authority to do whatever it takes to stop the invasion, it could work. However, if they're not allowed to have any bite behind their bark, then it probably won't do any good. They'll just find other ways around. They'll keep coming. But as soon as, people realize that, hey, they're deadly serious about enforcing their laws because they're a nation of laws. And if the current administration doesn't like the way the laws are, there are processes to change those laws. But under the current circumstances, this is the process. Under the current laws, this is the process to come into the country. It's you go and you apply for citizenship. So under the 1996 law that's currently on the books that Bill Clinton signed into law, you're supposed to stop in the first safe country you come to, not go ahead and come on into the United States and then ask for amnesty and declare yourself a refugee. That doesn't work. That's not the way the law works. If they want to change the law, more power to them. They could do that through the legislative branch. Anyways, moving on. I don't know how serious that option is, but the governors could do that in option 3. Just declare a state of emergency, multiple states on the border, and bring in their militias and put a stop to it overnight. Option 4, this is my favorite option. It's the best option because it came from Ron Paul back in about 2012. He said the easiest way, the simplest way to stop illegal immigration is turn off the magnet. It's so simple. What brings them here? Well, we'd have to stop giving them welfare, health care, licenses, jobs, housing, education, and any other benefits that American tax dollars are funding. Make it illegal to hire an illegal. You'd have to enforce those laws in every state of the union. It needs to be a national law that it is illegal to hire an illegal. So these companies would have to be punished. They'd have to either be fined or given prison time or whatever, because the real truth behind this entire invasion is they're creating a permanent underclass of people. They would be happier if we were all slaves, if no one remembered about freedom and liberty and, individualism, rugged individualism, things like that, your God-given rights. They would love it if none of us remembered any of that stuff. And a lot of us don't remember that stuff now. So what they're doing by flooding our nation with people, in many cases, that don't even speak English, is they're destroying our culture. The American culture. And yes, we have a culture. I've been asked before, what is the American culture? Well, it's our own unique thing. It's brought some of the greatest inventions mankind has ever known. Great ingenuity has been done here in the United States of America. Great inventions have come to the forefront because of the United States of America and our way of life. Medical advancements, on and on and on. Some of the greatest music in the world came out of the 60s and 70s. So we have a culture worth defending. And it shouldn't be left up to people, bureaucrats, who are basically taking kickbacks from their political class donors because their political class donors want to hire illegals for pennies on the dollar, slave wages. I mean, just think of it, the way we look back now on, the slavery issue here in the United States. Another 100 years from now, the people in the future will probably look back on the invasion issue in the United States as a softer form of slavery. I mean, yeah, no one's out there cracking the whip, but they're paying these people slave wages, pennies on the dollar, below minimum wage in most cases. And it was sold to us as a bill of goods back in the 90s when Clinton said, they're just coming to take jobs that no one else wants. And maybe at first that was partially true. But later on, they took the rest of the jobs, the rest of the trade jobs, framing, carpentry, plumbing, anything you can think of in the trades, welding. I have a personal friend with his family had a block masonry business where they did brick and block all of his life. He grew up doing that stuff, and he no longer does that because they can't compete with the contractors that are hiring illegals to do the jobs for pennies on the dollar. I mean, so it's putting classical American trade businesses out of business, has been for years. If we continue to allow this, there won't be any jobs left. Anyways, as always, guys, I appreciate you tuning in. I stand for liberty. I hope you do too.